Rhoda Bunnell, and the date is September 9th, 1989. I'm going to be talking with Rhoda Bunnell, and we're just going to be talking about her life and the things that she's seen and how she's felt and just life in general. Okay, Grandma, I thought it'd be best if we just went ahead and started at your first childhood memory. What's the first thing you can remember?
I imagine my school days. Almost. I just can't remember when I was younger than that, I don't believe. And I walked when I was 9 months old. And I went to school when I think I was 7. I think I was 7. And I can't tell you. Where am I at now?
You were 7 and you were going to school.
Yeah, well, and what I did when I got bigger, I always cleaned the house. I never learned to cook very good, but I always cleaned the house. And I had a brother that him and I were real chummy. I was 4 years younger than him. We always went horseback riding and went in hitched the pony up to the buggy and made trips. And then let's see now, then I got married long before he did. And I met my husband Justin at the Sisney Park on the 3rd of July, it was probably 19 and 14. And I came with my brother over here, and then I run across Justin. Of course, we'd always went to school together and everything. I knew him, you know. And there was a tent show that night, so we was going to stay for the show. And my brother had a girlfriend with him, you know. We come over in the spring wagon, and so then Justin asked me to stay, and he'd take me home. From that time on, that was, you might say, it. And we got married when I was 16, 19 and 16, and lived up close to Grandpa Bunnell's on, let's see, Elder Bunnell's place, I believe, Justin's brother. Then we moved from there over by Johnsonville. And that was where Catherine was born. And now what do you want to know?
What year was Catherine born?
See, we was married in 1916, and she was born in December 1917. Would it have been? We were just almost married. We was married a year in September, and then she was born the next December, not that one, but the next one. And we had 6 children, and Catherine, Marie, Dale, Dwight, Pauline, and Doris. And we've lost Dale. And they all, let's see, they, and of course you don't want to know how many. I've got 24 grandchildren.
Oh, good.
But I should have counted up my greats, because I've got a record there.
Yeah, you probably do.
Yeah. If you want to turn it off, we'll count them up.
Okay.
Catherine's got 3. From Marie, 7. From Dale, 3.
Say that.
No, Dwight doesn't have any great-grandchildren. From Doris. 2 from Doris. Great, you know.
Pauline's got 4.
Pauline's got 4.
And then there's step-grandchildren.
And then there's step-grandchildren. And then, now we're down to Doris. Is that it? Well, that's all there is, and she's got 2.
Okay, so there's 2. You've got 2 great-greats from Sandra. Oh, okay. Well, that's a potful. Okay, Grandma, exactly when were you born? Which birthday?
August the 27th, 1900. 1900.
Okay. And you were the second child? Second born? Or did you have, you said you had one other brother.
Oh, honey, there was 8 in the family.
Well, there was 8 of them. Just one that you were close to, huh?
Just the one. The others were older.
Oh.
And me and the one was called Virgil, we were the chums together, you know. No, there was just 3 girls, just I, and I've got 2 sisters.
Oh, I see.
And then I'd have how many brothers? There's 8 of us.
You have 5 brothers.
Well,
But there was only one of them that you were really close to.
well, yeah, because the others was older, and my sister, the youngest one, she was a baby, you know, so it was really Virgin I. We just did things together. Went horseback riding, and we'd go down the road, and when we'd come back, he'd lift the barn door open, and I rode right into the barn on that horse, and I'm still here.
Really?
So, let's see.
So he was just kind of special.
Oh yeah, and when Justin would come calling on me, and we went to church or wherever we went, when we come home, he usually got there first, or else and we were sit in the buggy out in front, because Justin always drove the horse and buggy, and we had a hitch rack out in front. He tied that old horse, her name was Nellie, tied her up to the hitch rack, and we'd sit out there just not too long, because my mother'd be up with her lamp looking at the clock to see what time it was that Rhodey should be in.
What was your curfew? What time did you have to be in by?
Oh, not later than 10. Not later than 10. That was terrible. And but when my brother would come home, instead of going in the house like he should have and been a good boy, he'd get around in the bushes. We were sitting in the buggy, you know, just before Justin would say good night and leave, you know. There he'd be eavesdropping. And he was just a pest all the way through.
And this was the older brother that was the pest instead of the younger brother.
No, he's the youngest.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, he's the youngest brother.
But he's older than you.
Yeah, the others are all older. See, Virgin and Irene were the younger ones. And then, when we were married, he would come over and try to scare me to death. And that aggravated Justin to death, you know. Oh, I don't know. He just ornery, that's all. And he wasn't married a couple of years later. I was married first. But some people thought that I was older than him, which thrilled him to death, you know. But I wasn't. I was 4 years difference in us. So.
Okay, tell me about a typical day. What would you do at that time frame? What would you do for entertainment? What was a date? If you had a date, where'd you go? What'd you do?
Oh, when we were going together, you mean?
Yes, we're going together. What kind of things did you do?
Well, we were supposed to go to church, but we did go to shows, and let's see what. And he only come on Sunday evening.
Just a once-a-week date.
Once-a-week
That's all you
date.
could have.
Uh-huh. And let's see now, I had a parlor at my, you know, and he could only be there so not too late, you know, so he had to be on his way. So let's see, and we did go to like Wayne County fairs and things at Fairfield. Different couples of us would go together, you know, things like that.
So you group dated?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we did we went to school together, although he's a lot older. Justin's about 6 years older than me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yep, that's right. And let's see now. I quit school and was married when I was 16. 19 and 16, or maybe I told you that. And
okay, was that the typical age that girls got married then? I mean, was that pretty much normal? You went to school until you got married, and then you quit.
That's about right. But now then, but nowadays, that's just kind of a kid day. Kids shouldn't get married that young.
Okay, at the time that you got married, did you feel young? Did you think, at any point, did you ever think, boy, I was kind of young when I got married, or did it just seem normal?
I just, I enjoyed myself, and everything just went off lovely. And we had our family, and we had hard times and everything like that. But really, I never thought, well, I should have waited. I never thought that. But I wanted my girls to wait till they were older.
Okay, why did you want the girls to wait?
I thought they could have a good time before they were tied down, you know, with a family.
How did your mom feel about you getting married at 16?
She thought I was too young.
How old was she when she got married?
That I don't know. I don't know. But then, of course, they had a big family, you know, and we never got our first car. We got it when, let's see, I think Dale was about 5, 6 years old when we got that, and it was a Ford.
Now let me think. What year would this be? I'm not real good with times, and I'm not real familiar with where the children were born at. So.
Yeah. My children were all born at home, not one in the hospital. Every one
What'd you do with the kids while you was having the next kid?
Well, I had an awful good sister-in-law. It was Elver's wife. That was Justin's brother's wife. And with my first ones, my mother was still there. And she died. She passed away when Doris was 2 years old. And let's see now, the Doris was the last one, you know. But otherwise, it was just my sister-in-laws that were there, except with Catherine. My mother and Justin's mother was there too. And Catherine was never very stout. And
So did they help you have the baby? I
Yep.
mean, did they help
And
you
we had the-
deliver the baby?
we had the doctor from Johnsonville.
And he came out to where you had the baby at? He came out to your house to deliver the baby?
Oh, yeah.
He didn't go
Mhm.
somewhere else?
Come out, a horse and buggy. Catherine was born the 29th of December,
Ooh.
and he drove out there with his horse and buggy, and had two horses hitched to the buggy. Top had a buggy with a top on it, and everything like that. And then Marie was born over by on the Circle place, close to the Blue Point Church. And Dale and Dwight were born on Fred Smith's place, up close to Grandpa Bunnell's place. And Pauline and Doris, we moved back to Johnsonville, to our old place that we bought when we first got married. They were both born there. And the first doctors that delivered Catherine and was from Johnsonville, and Marie, all the rest of them, they were doctors from Sisney.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And it was my sister-in-law that was there too,
So did you do your typical, nowadays you go to the doctor the whole time you're pregnant. Did you do that back
No,
then, or did you
no,
just,
mm-mm.
you were pregnant and you knew it, so you
Oh,
just
yeah.
waited until it was time to
Well,
have the baby? And
If there was times that I didn't feel too good, I had gone to the doctor, and I knew when I was about supposed to have the baby and things like that, But then, no, and we laid in bed for 9 days. On the 9th day, we were supposed to be just as quiet. That I don't understand yet to this day, because nowadays they go to the hospital and have the baby and almost go home the next day.
Grandma, I walked back from the delivery table having mine. I got up and walked back, and I bounced back faster than most.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
they went more back to how they used to do it in the Indian days.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well,
You never know how things are going to change.
yeah.
But they do a lot more prenatal care. While the baby's
Oh,
you're carrying
yes,
the baby, you've got to go to the doctor all the time.
And I think that our doctor bill was about $15.
Oh my goodness! $15 to have baby.
Yeah. Mhm. And now we can't afford the baby.
Yeah, now they're expensive.
No, it's outrageous. No, and we kept a hard girl for usually a couple of weeks.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
well, I hadn't thought about
And that would have been, maybe $3 or $4 a week we'd give them. No, we had
that. So,
help until. But when Doris was born, Catherine and Marie were good-sized girls, and when Doris was 2 years old, I went to Mount Vernon to the hospital and had my appendix took out, and had other surgery, and the girls stayed with Grandpa and Grandma Bunnell as Catherine and Marie, and Grace Smith, that was Justin's sister, she kept Doris. And Dale and Dwight stayed with Uncle Elver Bunnell, and they went to school. And one day when they went to school, they were supposed to let Elver take their dinner pails home. They stayed with their dad of a night, and then they'd go back to school, and Maggie would send their lunch, so they decided one night they'd bring their pails home and let their dad fix their dinner. I can't remember just what he put in their buckets, but now they didn't forget to send their buckets home with Uncle Elver after that.
It wasn't very good.
No, it wasn't very good. And then when I come home, my neighbor lady had went in and cleaned my house all up. There was just Justin and the two boys that stayed there because the girls were at the other places, you know. And she had a bouquet of flowers on the table and had my house all cleaned up for me. And Doris, this was in, I don't know if it was, anyway, it must have been awful close to Doris's birthday, because when I come home, why, she soon was 2 years old. And
It would have been what year? 19...
I can't tell you that. I can't tell you about.
So if Doris was about 2, then we're talking about 1929. And the birth dates of the children is Catherine, December 29th, 1917, Marie, September 7th, 1919, Dale, August 19th, 1921, Dwight, September 2nd, 1923, Pauline, August 20th, 1925, and Doris, November 19th, 1927 are the birth dates of the children. Okay. You had surgery right before 1929, or right around that time, right? Okay, now when the Depression hit, the crash happened in 1929, right? Do I remember right? I don't know my history.
No, Justin was subpoenaed to go, or had to go to had his card, was going to have to go to the service, you know, when we were married.
Oh, okay, now we're talking World War I now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that.
And, of course, then that would have been, it wasn't going on. Well, before Catherine was born,
okay,
he was going to have to, but he got off on the count. I was pregnant, you know.
Okay, so that was in 1917, and we're talking about World War I. So he
Yeah.
didn't have to go to World War I.
No, he didn't have to go.
Okay.
Of course, Dwight went to the other one, you know. And Dale
okay,
too.
Did you have any brothers or anything else that served in World War I?
Let me see. I don't think there was one of them.
Now, see, it dawned on me when I was thinking about doing this that in your lifetime you've seen all the wars. You know, World War I, World War II.
And that was hard.
You've seen the Korean conflict, and you've
and that was hard times too.
Yeah, and so I wondered how that touched you. You know, did you have friends or neighbors or anything that served in World War I?
Well,
We'll talk about it first. World War I.
I had my dad and mother, and then, you know, and things were different at that time. Wasn't like it was when we had the last one, you know, when the kids all went. You see, Catherine stayed with us. That's the last war, you know. Catherine stayed with us, and we kept Marie's children and all this and that, and went on, you know.
Okay.
But now with the first one,
you were young.
Yeah.
Then. You were the young married.
That was
kid.
That was before Catherine was born.
Okay. So, how did you feel about that? I mean, can you remember? What your thoughts were about World War I? I know in the history books it says it was supposed to be the war to end all wars.
Yeah. I don't know. I know that about the main thing I remember about it was hard times.
Okay. What do you mean by hard times? What?
Well, we just didn't have nothing hardly. We just had to live out of the garden, and Justin didn't have no money, and we just had hard times.
Was he a farmer? Justin.
Yeah.
These farmers at the time
Mhm.
planted. What does farmer in the 1916s mean? I mean, what?
They just put out just small crops, and we depended on the garden, and we had our own meat and everything like that. You know, we didn't go to the store. We went to buy sugar, and we didn't buy milk, or we didn't buy anything at the store, but you might say coffee and sugar. And we did buy beans lots of times, but we even raised our own and even threshed them out. Soup beans, you know.
Now see?
Yeah, we went out and picked, we'd go out and pick the soup beans. Just pull up the bushes. And we put ours in a wagon box, and then Justin took something and just beat the beans out. And then we'd gather up all the hull, you know, and then we'd blow the stuff all out of them, and we had as much as lard cans full of what we call soup beans. And we had our own meat, we had our own potatoes, we had our own eggs.
Okay, what if you needed something else? I mean, did you sew? How did you buy material and stuff? Did they do the barter system where you took your beans and you traded with somebody for
I would buy just material, and I made my Catherine and Marie, and even my boys when they were little, made them what was called little aprons. They had little half collars on them, and the boys' little aprons, they opened down the back with buttons. They wore them, and the girls, I would make them little dresses. I was no seamstress, but that's what we did. We didn't go buy their things. We made them, and we made a lot of their clothes out of feed sacks. We bought our chicken mash in, and they'd have pretty flowered sacks. And we used them for everything. Even made covers for our beds and things like that.
So
and
it was a time when you didn't waste anything.
No.
I mean, you found it for everything.
And we had a incubator, we called it. We got the eggs and put in it, and I had awfully good luck with it. I had at one time I had 500 little chickens.
Oh my goodness.
And I raised them, and when they got to be hens and so on, we sold as high as 30 dozen cases of eggs a week.
Wow. So you had an income from the eggs that the hens were laying. And that was some of your money that you
that helped make our living. It was our garden and our chickens and things like that.
What did people pay you with? I mean, you said money was tight and not very much money was circulating.
Well, sometimes we would have some hogs we'd sell, you know, and we had cattle, and Justin would sell some of them some of them he'd sell at calves, and others would be older, you know, and but as far as having things to sell, it was just hogs, and we sold chickens. We sold after our chickens would get through the laying season, why we would what we call cull our hens and get the ones out that wasn't going to lay, and we'd take them to market.
How did you know which ones would lay and which ones wouldn't lay?
We had a fella that would come and test them. I don't know. He'd put his fingers at the back, you know, like that, and if he could put the fingers in between the tailbone, like, you know, and if he could put the two fingers in there some way or another, why they were good laying hens. And I don't know just how he did it, but we had a fella come and cull them.
And they called that culling.
Yeah.
It was just a way to find out which ones would lay
and there was a fellow that would go around with his coops and buy these chickens and pay us for them, you know.
And those are the ones that became chicken and dumplings.
Yeah.
The ones that didn't lay good were.
Yeah. And we had what we called a huckster wagon that was from the store at Johnsonville, and he had this big wagon, and he would have he had groceries too, but he also had my handkerchief. Well, I got to go get me one now. Oh, here it is. And he would have material that we buy by the yard, and he had what I call sideboards on this, and it was SEMA horses hitched to it. And he'd come on a certain day a week, usually on Friday, and we could even sell him some chickens if we wanted to buy something with our hens. Why, he would buy them, and we'd trade them out.
Yeah, you had something else in place.
Yeah, we could get sugar, get a quarter's worth of sugar, and maybe a quarter's worth of beans, and he had coffee and things like that. And the kids always just looked forward to the old huckster wagon coming, you know. So
this would have been between the times of 1916 when you first got married.
Yeah.
1920.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
20.
Mm-hmm. And of course.
How did you find out what was going on with the war? I mean, did you have a radio? No, radio wasn't real. Was radio even common yet then?
Yeah,
See,
well,
I'm not real familiar with even what was.
Our first radio we had, but that was right after Catherine was born. It had.
Catherine was born, we're talking 1917, 1918.
That was
right, 1918. She
Uh-huh.
was born at the end of 17.
Yeah.
Okay, and that radio had batteries.
Yeah, oh yes. We had bad radio for a long, long time. And we would go once in a while, before we got our radio, we'd go to our neighbors and watched a show that always come on of an evening. I can't think them old guys' names that always come on that we liked so well. And so then we got to where we was able to get us a radio. And let's see now.
So your evening entertainment would have been to sit down, after the dishes were all done, you'd sit down and listen to this radio program.
After the girls got bigger, Catherine was a real good, we had an organ, and she could really play the organ. Marie could play too, but Catherine was a real good, there was so many things she couldn't do that she was good with that. And them and their dad would do a lot of singing.
Oh, neat.
Yes, of an evening, and we had just kerosene lamps set on the organ had little stands on it on the side, you know. We had just a kerosene lamp that set on the organ, and they would just, and Justin sang him and his brother. He just had the one brother. And his two sisters, and Elver's wife, Maggie, she would play the piano. They sang at funerals, lots and lots of them. Mm-hmm. And the kids would get together lots of times and we'd make homemade ice cream.
Oh, okay.
And we'd go to Blue Point Church on Sunday in our old car. It was nothing fancy. And sometimes when we'd get ready to go home, that thing would just be loaded down with kids going home with us. And I'd think, oh, just how much are we going to have for dinner, you know, because I'd fix for them. But the kids didn't think anything about that, you know. They just wanted to have a good time, and they'd go home with them. So, and
Okay, so you mentioned a car. Well, when did you get your first car? For that matter, when did cars come along? Let's see. I'm not real good with.
Grandpa Bunnell got his, let's see now, on Fred Smith's place. And Dale would have been about, only about 4 years old, I expect. And we just lived just down the road from them. And Dale loved to let on like he was driving a car. So Grandpa Bunnell would bring his car out and park it in front of the house. And the next thing I would know, I would miss Dale. He had crawled under the front gate, and gone up to Grandpa Bunnell's. And it had a crank, that hung down in front. There he was, buzzing away with his mouth and a crank in that car.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, that was, and then it seems like that we bought our first car when Granddad then sold that one and got him a different one, seemed like we bought it. And our kids was all little, but I don't remember just.
Well, and you said he was about 4 or 5, so that would have been in about 1925 that Grandpa Bunnell got his first car. So how long did he keep it before he sold it?
I just can't remember, but he did have it quite a little while.
Okay,
but,
so it would have been the early 30s.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Late 20s, early
30s. So.
And it was the crank type.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And, but, we always, when our kids was little, and it would come a snow or anything, when we went to church, we'd always go to Blue Point and when we went after night, or even, I can't remember that we ever went on the sled in the day, we'd have a wagon box we'd put on a mud boat, we called it, a sled, and put straw in it, put a cover over that, kids all get in there and sit down, and we'd just hitch the horses up. That's the way we went to church of a night.
I see.
That was when snow was on.
You had straw all around the kids.
We had straw. We put straw in the bottom for the kids to sit on, and we put a cover over it. They'd get in, all sit down in that wagon box, and we'd go to church.
And you and Justin would ride in the front.
Yeah, we did have what we called a spring wagon seat, across the front or something, and let's see now.
Okay, you talked about going to church. I want to know what church was like. I mean, how long was church? Nowadays, you go for an hour. 10:30 to 11:30, that's it, you're out of church. Was church different then than it is now?
Well, they had church on Saturday night, every Saturday night.
Church on a Saturday night, huh?
Every Saturday night was, well, now listen, I don't mean every Saturday night, but I mean, we just had church maybe, I don't know whether we had it twice a month or not, just like that. We didn't have it every, no, we just have it maybe twice a month, And the preacher would come from around Benton or Mount Vernon or somewhere, and they'd come up on the train, and Grandpa Bunnell usually met the train, and they'd have church on Saturday night, church on Sunday, and then on Monday morning they'd go back home on the train.
I see. So you had a whole weekend of church.
Yeah.
You didn't just go on Sunday. The
we
particular week
went on
Saturday
night.
Saturday night and Sunday morning, both. Your revival type of thing, like what we would call a mini revival.
Yeah, well, that was just then we did have revivals, and they would last a week or so, and we even had tent revival. At Blue Point Church, they put up a tent, and they had a couple of preachers, and they had the piano, and they had seats and everything out there in that big tent. We had what we called a tent meeting, but it was at the Blue Point Church.
What did the kids do during this time? Did they have special things for the children to do, or did the children just sit in where the adults did?
No, they had their own. Now, Justin was Sunday school teacher a long time, and he had Catherine and Marie's class. I don't remember about the boys. I don't remember what class they were in, but Catherine and Marie were in that class. And they went on picnics different times and things like that, you know. And but their dad taught, and when he first began to teach, he said after he had stood up there before the kids a little while, you know, until he was nervous, I guess. He had a knife in his pocket, and I don't know how but anyway, he got his finger cut, and then when he after Betty looked at me, he had his finger cut, and it was a bleeding, you know, and he said he was just nervous, you know. So, and he taught the Sunday school class a long time. Then Catherine and Marie and different ones of the class were baptized, and a preacher by the name of Lipton Harpoon from Mount Vernon baptized them.
Where did they get baptized at? I mean,
in a pond.
In a pond.
Yeah, just they'd always pick a nice, you know, some of them that they call ponds were nicer and deeper and didn't stalk run around them and everything like that. They were nice, clean ponds, you know. That's where they'd go to have that. And I was baptized over close to the Hargrave schoolhouse, and that's where I went to school. And that was in a pond, and that was I just can't think what year I was baptized, but then I just don't remember what year it was. But
you have any idea how old you were?
Yeah, I was married.
You were married.
Mm-hmm.
You made your commitment.
Yeah,
so you were at least.
Oh yeah, I was
between 16 and.
Oh, I was older than that. I was. I went to church quite a while before I was joined the church. You know, and that's where Catherine and Marie, all of them belonged. Of course now. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's neat. Now we talked about the car that you had, which we decided that was in around 1925. Mm-hmm. Now I want to talk a little bit about the Depression, when the stock market failed. Do you remember that day? You know, I mean, I don't remember if it was, but they always call it Black Monday. Was it a Monday? I don't remember my history.
Seems like it was.
They call it Black Monday in all the history books that I've learned about. I'm a history buff, you can tell, can't you?
Yeah.
I just wonder what you thought.
You see, I never even went very far in school because, you see, I was married so early, you know. And when it comes to that, I just can't tell you much about it.
Okay. Do you remember hearing anything about it on the radio? I mean, did they talk about the banks have failed?
Yes, talked about the times, you know, and I don't know, I can't just think how that was, but it seemed like, you know.
What change did it bring in your life? I mean, did you notice, in my imagination, I've always wondered if it was one way one day and then poof, it was another way another, you know.
Well, I'd think one day, what are we going to do the next day?
And it was a constant worry.
Yes, yeah, you didn't know. You just didn't know how we was going to make out, you know, how things was going to come out.
But see, you were on a farm.
Yeah.
So you had the food.
Mm-hmm.
So it was probably a lot different experience for
Yeah.
you than what it would have been for an urban city, city dweller.
Oh,
that
yes.
didn't have that
No,
advantage.
they didn't have anything. That was different, you know. No. Anyway, I know we just got along. We kind of think about it, and there was times that I couldn't mail a letter. I didn't have a 2-cent stamp. Of course, we sent our cards for 1 cent, you know. And then our letters cost us 2 cents.
Oh, my.
Yeah, 2 cents. We had to buy 2-cent postage. I've even got some cards around that's just got a 1 cent stamp on it. And 2 cents was a long, long time before we had a change in it. And think what it is now.
And that was a lot of money. I mean, that was
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was equivalent to
Well,
a quarter
yeah.
of today.
When
I
you
mean,
d- when I
compared-
just, you know, we just sometimes we just run out, and we just had to make the best of it with what we had.
So what you really learned was
Yeah.
trust God,
Yeah,
take it
that,
one day at a time,
Yeah,
and don't
that.
worry.
one day at a time. That is my song yet to this day. I love one day at a time.
Yeah, that's my favorite too.
Oh,
I
it's
like
mine. Yeah, I love that song. And
Okay, now if I remember right, it was World War II that kind of made the economics
yeah,
better in America.
yeah,
Okay, now, when World War II happened, that was the Japs bombing Pearl Harbor. Of course, Hitler was active ahead of that time.
yeah.
What did you think at that time? I mean, how did you feel about Hitler? I mean, obviously you hated him, but what did
Yeah.
you think?
Well, I just didn't think. I just hated the man. You know, the main thing that I can think about in the war times is when my son-in-laws and my two boys had to go. See, Estel went, that's Catherine's husband. Richard, their first baby, was born after he went in the service, and she stayed with us.
Okay, so he had a child, and he still went.
It was, of course, it wasn't here when he went into service, but he had to go anyway. Then Charles went, and he moved Marie up to Flora, and Janice and Joyce were just little kids, you know.
Oh, okay. Now, see, I didn't know Grandpa Connor had been in the
Oh, honey, if I can think of it, I'll hunt a picture up. I've got a picture of him when he's in the service. I'll give it to you. It's a great big one. Yeah, I think I've still got it. I don't think I give it back to Marie. Yes, he was in the service, and Marie lived in Florida, and Doris and Pauline stayed with her.
Okay, and so they were her younger sisters. Doris
Yeah.
and Pauline are her younger sisters.
Uh-huh. And they worked at the shoe factory.
Oh.
Uh-huh. And then
And Janice and Joyce were babies. Were
they
small
were just
children.
little children, yeah. I don't think they were school age or anything like that.
No,
I've just got words, pictures of them. Hey, Alice, I'll hunt them up and I'll give you some of them.
Okay, I'd like that.
Yeah, I will. And then and Dwight was in Rockford working out, and he come home and joined the army. And I just like to have killed me. I just couldn't. I said, Dwight, do you know what you're doing? Yes, I know what I'm doing. He said, and if he'd get a little bit sore at me, he'd say, Mom, I'm going to join the army. So when he went in, he had a bad hand. He got burned when he was maybe about a year old or younger. Got his hands on the bottom of a kitchen stove. It was hot around the bottom base of it, and he got his hands burned awful bad. Well, then he had a kind of what you'd call a crippled hand. His thumb, the artery, or the whatever it was, went from his thumb to his finger, and it just made a kind of a hole in the middle of his hand. Well, they asked him about it when he went in, and no, that didn't hurt him. And after he was in so long, oh, he was so homesick. He sent me pictures, and I sat down and cried when I got them pictures. I'd never seen such a beautiful little boy in all my life. And they sent him overseas. And when he got overseas, they would ask him if that hand didn't hurt him, you know. No, it didn't hurt him. That was when he went in. He said, no, it didn't hurt him. after he was in a little while, and they checked him over, that hand hurt him. Didn't hurt him at all, but it did, you know, hurt his feelings. And they just told him, said, we don't need you over here. We need people that can use their hands like that. So they sent him home.
So you got a medical discharge.
Uh-huh. And Dale was he was a sailor.
Okay, so you had one in the Navy and one in the Army.
Sailor. And I had Estelle and Charles. Let's see, and Gene didn't pass the examination, so he didn't have to go.
Now, which one does Gene belong with?
Pauline.
Okay.
And Bob, he was in the service. He went in the same time Estelle did. Jerry Bob was born while Bob was in the service too. I've got 4 son-in-laws. Is that right? I think that's right. Well, I know I've got 4 girls. Mm-hmm. And they all went to the service except Gene, and he didn't pass. So.
But you didn't lose anybody. I mean,
no,
none of them.
No, they all come back.
See how good God is. I mean, even though the war touched your life, He was very protective.
Well, I would go to bed at night after them 2 boys was in the service, and I would hear on the news what an awful time and how things were, you know, and I would actually wake up trying to cover Dwight up, thinking that he was freezing to death. Oh, and I got down to 103 pounds.
That was probably the worst time of your life then.
Mm-hmm.
That would probably be qualified as
yeah, that probably was when the boys was in the service. That was it, and of course we helped the girls out. You know, that was
Well, it touched you from every aspect, though.
Yeah.
Not only did you have sons in there, but you had daughters that had husbands in there.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
worrying about their husbands.
That's right.
Raising their kids. Well, that must have been an awful dark valley to walk through.
Well, it really was. It was just, and you didn't know what you was going to hear next, you know. And of course, Dale was on the waters, you know, and things like that. See, and
yeah, there wasn't any aspect of the war that couldn't touch you.
No.
I mean, you had Navy. No. What about Charles? What was he in? Was he in the Army?
Just in the Army. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Marie went. I can't think where she went, but she went and visited him. I can't think where him and Dwight finally wound up in the same camp or close together or something. I don't know if they got to stay together, but not. You know, I don't remember. Did Charles go? I don't remember if he went across or not.
I didn't even know he was in the Army. I didn't even know that.
Well,
here I thought about how those wars had touched you, but I hadn't even thought about the other grandmas.
Janice and Joyce were just little folks.
Boy, that'd be hard.
Uh-huh.
How did you feel God helping you through that time? I mean, how was God's presence known to you during that time?
I just thought if we did the very best we could and just hoped for the best and tried to ask that they'd all be brought back home and have their health, which they have. I don't guess it hurt any of them. I don't think it did. And so
it was one of those necessary evils, though. I mean, you know, it was a hard war.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, then comes along the Korean War years later. I don't remember exactly when, but in the 40s, I think, early 50s. I guess that Korean War was in the 50s. Did you have any grandkids? By then, you could have had grandkids.
Yeah.
That could have served in the Korean War. Did you have any? Well, they don't call it a war. They call it a conflict.
Yeah. Doris's son, Jerry Bob, was in the service. And Dennis was in the service.
Wayne's uncle?
Dennis was in the service when him and Shirley got married.
Well, see, I didn't know that either. I didn't know Dennis had ever been in the service.
Yeah, I've got his picture in there. I'll show you it. I've got it. Yes, Dennis was in the service.
So that was during the Korean War.
That was after, yeah, they just had moved up to Florida, I think, when Dennis went into service. Yeah, now I'm not going to say that they was married while he was in the service. Could have been after he got out, but I don't know. It seems to me it was while he was in the service. But anyway, Dennis was in the service. And let's see now. Pauline's Mike was in the service.
Now he's younger though. Was Mike in the Vietnam conflict?
Mike was in the same one that in the last one, you know, that my grandchildren was in.
Okay.
You see, there was Dennis and Mike. And Jerry Bob. And let's see now. Would that have been all? I don't think if I had any more grandchildren in there or not. I can't. Let me think a minute on it.
Okay.
Catherine's boy. They've come from Germany back here, and they were in down here in Oklahoma now. First time he's been in, I believe it's 6 years. Maybe it's longer than that. And he is going to make a career of it.
So military definitely touched your life. And you definitely
But you know,
the worry.
You know, Alice, when them boys were in, they didn't get no money. It just wasn't nothing. Dwight, I mean, he had some bonds. He hadn't been in no time till he wrote home, wanted me to pay. I don't know how many. I don't remember how many bonds he had. And I'd have to go cash them bonds. I'd take them to the post office, cash them, and send him the money. They didn't have nothing. Their pay was just so little, you know.
Well, the nation was in hard times.
Yeah, and Estelle, Catherine would get her check, you know, because from him and being in the service, you know, she got a check. She just about had to cash her check and send it back to Estelle. They didn't have that. They didn't get no money at all. Now then, Gary, that Catherine's boy, I forget what he's getting, but she and his wife was in the service when they got married, but she only stayed in just a short time till her time was up, and now then she said she just wanted to be a housewife. You're not recording this, are you?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Well, I want to know, Grandma.
And she didn't, she just wanted to be a housewife, and she was going to work too. She said she could, you know, she'd been in the service long enough so she could get her a good job, and she's a great pianist, and she plays piano at the church, or did before they come over here, you know. So
My service life would be hard. I think that would have been a dark valley for me.
yeah.
I would have
But
had
you
something
know,
like
that was the making of Catherine's boy, Gary. That was the making of him. He seemed like he couldn't get no work, and he didn't, and the girls didn't bother him at all, and he just stayed home and played music and didn't get out or nothing. And he said, but he's a fine boy now.
Back in your teenage days, what was morals have changed over the years. You know, I mean, what shocks us nowadays would have mortified a teenager in your day. For your time frame, what was shocking? What was an absolute no-no for a girl to do, or for a boy to do, that is considered normal today?
Well, one of the main things, they didn't want you slipping out having boyfriends. That was one of the main things. I really can't think. We went, they had tent shows at Johnsonville, and they had what they would just put them up on the screen, you know, the picture, the movies. It wasn't, they didn't talk. But later on, they got to where they had the talking things, you know. And we would walk to Johnsonville and go to the movie and go to that show, you know, that we looked forward to that. And I just can't tell you, about all we knew was just go to school and come, and some of your friends would want you to go home with them and stay all night, and sometimes we'd have to beg to get to go, you know. And
kids were
yeah,
less ornery
yeah,
than they are now. Nowadays, trouble seems to
yeah,
find
and
it easier.
I can't remember that, and we used to get together and play games, hide and go seek and things like that, you know, and I don't know. And of course, we went to church. My folks went to the Missionary Baptist Church on Sunday. That's where they went, you know.
So basically, one of the big differences was, in your growing up years, everybody's life focused around the church.
And
nowadays it's more of the rarity that there's a family that embeds themselves in the church.
We would just on weekends we just get girls that all get together, you know, and we just visit back and forth, you know, and we just I don't know. It seems to me that we had a telephone from the time I can remember. It seems like we did. There might have been a time that we didn't have. And you just fastened on the wall, and you just got up and turned the crank and rang. And then if you had to make a call to somebody that wasn't on your line, you'd have to call the operator. We had one at Johnsonville and Reinard and all around. And my folks rang when I would call them. That was after I was married. Theirs was 3 shorts.
Oh.
And ours was a short, long, short. And people they was 10 or a dozen on this one line. And you would ring up at anybody. Well, he would ring at my house too, and I could go take the receiver down and eavesdrop, see what's going on.
Oh.
And I can remember well that my mother, our neighbor lady, she thought a lot of her. She was, they were Germans, but of course they went to church here and everything, and they were just one of us. But her and her sister could both talk German, and so my mother and them had been together at some kind of a quilting or something, and then this lady called up her sister, and my mother went to eavesdrop. So when she hung up, she was so aggravated. She knew that they were talking about her, but she could.
Well, I want to know what the kids did at Zonry.
First of all, Marie she took Dale over. He would go to my chicken house, and he would get eggs and break them. She didn't think her mother would take care of him, so she takes her little switch, and she goes out to the chicken house. She switches his little eggs and brings him right in. And one time, I don't know just how old he was. I mean, he might have been 3. I don't know if he's that old or not. We had a half a barrel that we caught water in, or we was watering a stalk with it. Dale goes out, play in that water. He went in on his head. Well, Marie, she saw that. She took care of it. But now she really made Dale mine. I didn't have to worry about that part. And they would steal out eggs out of the chicken house, put them in a little basket, and take them to the store, and they would buy them some smoking.
Oh.
And so the guy that run the store, he kind of wanted to find out, you know, if their mother knew that they didn't. See, they're buying this for Dad. And then they would get smoking, and they would get out even behind the house, behind the barn, and we'd find out that they was smoking. Well, when I would tell on them, their dad would take them over. He's the one that done the whipping. Dale would even fix something in his pants in order to so he's whipping. So bad. And they'd all get a thrashing. Well, Dwight, of course, he hated the thrashing awful bad. But they were the, Catherine and Marie were the big girls. Dale and Dwight were Doris and Pauline were the little girls. And Dwight and Pauline, they took our car. Dwight was just a little fellow. And they got it out and drove it around the barn lot and run into a post and had them quite a time. But anyway, Dwight drove the car. And every time I would take the kids and go someplace and we'd get out, Dale would go back out to the car and he would try to get that car started and push it off down the road, you know. Oh, they was awful on their little kids.
Well, I admire you. You admit it. My grandma won't admit her kids were bad at all.
Oh,
You hear her talk, they was all angels.
And they were just as good as they could be. They always wanted to get me something for Christmas, you know, and everything. And one Christmas when Catherine and Marie were just, I don't remember anything about the boys being into this, but Justin took them to town because they wanted to get me something for Christmas, you know. And they took, I don't know, maybe half a dozen old hens, put them in a gunny sack, tied them shut, loaded them, and they went in the sled. Oh, it was cold. Catherine just, I know she just liked her froze, but I think she got me a butter dish and a cream pitcher, old-fashioned, and I forget what Marie got. I can't remember. And when they come home, they was just nearly froze to death. But now they went and done the Christmas tree, and I don't expect. And our kids, they just got very little for Christmas. Justin would be Santa Claus, and when he'd come knock on the door and bring things, you know, before they went to bed. Why, some of them was scared to death of him, but some of them said, "Oh, that's you, Dad," you know. Of course, he never let on like he did. And they noticed these shoes or what it was he had on. They knew that was Dad. But, you know, it wasn't Dad. Dad was gone somewhere. I don't know where he went, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they always had a pretty good Christmas. And Grandma Bunnell would just worry around and she'd get every one of them something. Maybe it'd just be gloves or socks or something. But that wasn't me. I thought that she'd done her duty. I didn't want her to get anything to keep. And we'd get them little things, you know, for Christmas. I remember we got my mother a real pretty dish for Christmas. We got it down at the store, only give a quarter for it. And we got Justin's mother the same thing. And right to this day, I give Marie, my mother, and Catherine, I give Catherine my mother's and give Marie Grandma Bunnell. And now then, they say them dishes is worth a lot. They took out and things like that, you know. And I can remember when my mom got Justin, and I can't think. I guess it would have been my sister's man. Anyway, she got him a tobacco in a little cloth sack, drawn up, you know, and a pipe, because they had smoked, you know. And I thought that was so awful. They didn't need to smoke, I didn't think, you know, but they did. So, when Justin quit smoking, he fell off the wagon. His horses run off with him. That was when Jerry Bob was about 2 or 3 years old, about 3 years, maybe only he was over 2, I don't think. And he went and got a load of wheat, seed wheat, and over to a neighbor's, and he was breaking in another horse. And Jerry Bob, he just wanted to go. He called him Dad. Oh, he wanted to go so bad. He run up and down the fence. He wanted to go, you know. But I was afraid for us to go with him because he had that, was breaking that new horse in, you know. So he went and got the wheat and come back. And when he got over to the ground that Grandpa Bunnell had given him, we had a little building on that. That's where he's going to take the seed wheat. The horses got scared, and they throwed him off the wagon and broke his leg.
Ooh.
And I was at home. I had Jerry Bob there, that was Dorsey's boy. And I remembered well what I was doing. I was making him some little trading pants. We made them out of flour sacks, you know.
Oh, my
Trading
goodness.
pants. Yeah, we always made a lot of flour sacks. And they called and told me that Dustin had the horses that had thrown him onto the wagon, and they was going to take him to Florida, and the neighbors was going to take him. And so I got in the car and went over where they was at, but I met them on the road, and so they said they'd just take him on Florida, but they could bring him back, you know. But when they got to Florida, they didn't even want to take him out because they seen he had a broken leg, and they didn't do that at Florida, so these folks took him all over to Alney, you know. And so I took Jerry Bob and went back home. And that was on the 3rd of October. I don't remember the date, but only I know it was the 3rd of October. And then when the neighbor lady come back, she said, my, she said, why didn't I take that little boy and let you go? You was the one that went with him over there. I said, well, I was glad it was the way it was, you know. So then later, when Doris and Pauline and them come home, they lived very close to us. They were married then, and they worked at the shoe factory, you know. And Bob was, and Pauline and Jean both were. So then they went, and this neighbor had put the horses in the barn, and he was really afraid of them, you know. And so then Jean and Bob and them went and got the horses and brought them home. So we got rid of that horse. And I don't know what other experience I've had with the kids. I just don't know.
Okay. What about the grandkids? And Janice and some of them? Can you remember anything that...
I'll remember lots of things on Janice and Freddie. We moved in with Grandpa Bunnell after Grandma died. First, Edith and Isaac Smith stayed with him. Then we moved in with him from our place over at Johnsonville. Then we moved in with Grandpa Bunnell. And Freddie and Janice, they thought the world of Grandpa Bunnell. That was Justin's dad, you know. And we had a seat out in the yard, you know, that he had bought. And they had a seemed as though Freddie had a little dog, I believe. But Janice and Joyce, they'd come there, and Grandpa just go right out, sit in the yard, and oh, they had the best time. I've just got pictures of them. And sometimes when Charles and Marie get ready to go home, Janice would sit on the front steps. She wasn't going. And they let all that go leave her. She didn't care if it did. So then she'd go. And Dwight, he was broke his leg when he was in Rockford, and when he come home. And we must not have had any car. No, we used Grandpa Bunnell's car. And it was way up at the shed, you know. And Dwight, really, he just couldn't, well, he could get around with crutches or however. And Charles and Marie just lived up the road from us a little piece. He wanted to go down to Reinard. I expect he wanted to go to see Grant, no telling, but he just slipped off, went up, got Grandpa's car out of the shed, went by, and he got Janice, and he took her to town, and we never know the thing till he came back. And Grandpa Bunnell would have noticed who died. You know, well, it was terrible too, you know. He just snuck out and done that. And then when
so did Janice.
yeah, she just loved it. Oh, Dwight was so wonderful with her. She'd do anything, you know. Oh, I'll tell you, Janice was she was just cute as she could be. Wasn't nothing mean about her. She was just cute as she could be. She was just Janice, that was all, but she was a cute one. And Dale and Dwight, when I was in the hospital, when I had that surgery, they come, Grandpa Bunnell, they come in his car, and it had side curtains on it, you know. That was the kind of car we had, an old Ford, you know. And Grandpa Bunnell come with him. So Justin just come and he brought the boys, because on weekends, when they weren't in school, they were at home with him, you know. And some way or another, Grandpa Bunnell stopped somewhere and bought him some bananas. And when they got home, Dale and Dwight was in the back seat, and Grandpa was in the front seat with Justin. And them boys ate every banana he had. When they got home, he didn't want to get his bananas. Well, he didn't have no bananas. Well, Justin, he said, you just need to give them boys a licking. He said, they've ate my bananas, you know. Oh, just tickle them kids. They didn't bother them one bit. They didn't get no whipping either. But I suppose they did get a good scolding. But oh, they'd done lots of things. And they used to break the calves to ride. Get out, they had and Catherine was always afraid of little chickens. And if I had lost a chicken and they could catch her out, they'd take out a little chicken and scare her with it, you know. Oh. And that wasn't good for her because she wasn't well, you know. And they loved ice skates. I remember the first skates Dale got, he just got them for Christmas, and the next morning, boy, he was up at 4 o'clock and ready to go down pond to skate. And they loved the ice skates, you know. Catherine and Marie used to ride to school once in a while on a horse.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's, you know, if the roads were real bad and it was cold or something, well, they went on old Ned. I think that was the horse we had. I think that was his name. And if I went to pick blackberries, and I helped in the field some. If I went to help in the field or do anything like that, when I come home, my house was all clean, but everything was changed all around.
Oh.
Yeah, but they would clean it from head to foot. They just loved to clean the house when I got gone, you know. And they always did the ironing and everything like that. And they always said, that they never learned to do lots of things when it comes to baking because I wouldn't let them. You see, I'd rather do it myself than have the muss.
Yeah.
So I didn't. So they didn't. They didn't think they learned very much. Only cleaning. They could clean, but they didn't think they learned much about the cooking.
Well, I imagine by the time you'd worked in the fields, you were a little too tired for
Yeah.
the patience that
Yeah.
it takes to teach
Yeah.
a little one something.
And Pauline and Justin, Pauline just loved to pick blackberries. She just picked blackberries and she loved to can. And right to this day, she got my cellar full of stuff out there. She just loves to can and do things. And Dale, he was always into something. He was supposed to be using the mower, mowing hay. It was away from home in another field. And first thing we knew, a neighbor of ours was coming in, and he said they had the horses just driving them, and Dale was coming along with him. They was walking. They'd unhitched him from the mower, you know. And come to find out, he said, there's Orville Alvis, and he says, Dale broke his arm. He said, I don't know how bad he's hurt. Oh, he was just scared to death. This neighbor was, you know. Well, we wondered how he done it. Well, this and that, Dad, you know. He always made up all kind of a tale. Come to find out, he was standing up in the seat, a-mowing. And he fell off that mower. The one that didn't kill him.
Oh.
He was lucky that he just got a broken arm. I don't know. Let's see. I believe that Marie was the only one that graduated from high school.
She likes school then.
She used to faint at everything. They went out to pick some berries one evening, and Catherine couldn't get in the lines to pick, you know, so Marie, she'd get in and pick the berries. And she scratched her leg, and I don't know what, and the first thing they know, she just tumbled over right there, you know. Boy, Catherine just run as hard as she could run, you know, to tell me that Marie was, well, she thought Marie was a dying, I think, and come to find out all she'd done is, and if she'd get out and get too hot, she'd just tumble over. We was at Fairfield, her graduation. Now, I can't tell you, but that must have been a great school because they're going to Fairfield. I don't know, it seemed like that's what it was. And they had it outside, and it was a real hot day. First thing we know, Marie tumbled over. Had to stretch her out on the ground under a tree till she come out of it, you know. But now I guess she don't do that very much anymore, but it ain't been too long ago that she just faded everything.
Huh.
And, oh, that's hurt off a little bit. Alice, would you like that little stool in there?
No, I'm fine.
Would you want it to stand?
No, I'm fine.
Well, you got a soft floor. Well,
Okay.
Well, what did you want to know?
When did Justin get sick? Or
huh?
what happened to your husband?
Oh, well, he was ailing for a long time. He had a heart trouble, and he had light strokes. Just kept having little light strokes, and then he'd get to where he had loss of memory, and he just wasn't able to do it and stuff. And he really was able to get out and go, but he couldn't help me do anything. And the money proposition worried him. He thought, and it got to where, but it got so bad that I was just his hard girl. And he worried because he couldn't pay me much. And and I could not wait till I got him out. Brought him home. Charles and Marie went and got him. I went up to Charles and Marie's one night, and I told them, I said, you know what I'm going to do? And they said, no, they didn't know. I said, I'm going to bring Dad home. Oh, Charles said, and Charles is not much to talk, but he said, oh, you can't take care of him. I said, maybe I can. But I said, I'm going to try. And if I can't, I won't be that stubborn. You can take him back. And I said, I can do it. And so I come on home, made arrangements for them, and they went and got him that afternoon, brought him home. And you'd never seen anybody was as thrilled as he was to be home. He looked everything all over, and he said, my, you've got a nice place. And he wanted to know how long I'd lived here, and all this and that, and how I was getting by. And I said, well, Dad, what we've got, what I've got, you've got. I said, this place belongs to me and you both. Oh, he didn't know that. Yeah, I said, it does. So I just kept him, took care of him. After a bit, he got so bad that his heart was awful bad. And he just didn't know, and he had to take the bed. So we talked about getting somebody to stay with him. I didn't want anybody. I wanted to do it myself. But the kids just worried about it. So I told Dwight that he was here. I don't know, I think he was here on a visit. I said, Dwight, I can tell you what I want to do. I said, Tom, that's my niece's husband. They just lived on the street down here. He was a crippled guy, not too well. I said, if you want me to have help, just get him to come and every morning and help me out till after Dad has his bath and everything. And I said, that's as long as I want him, and if I need him anytime, I'll just call him. So they went down and seen him, and they give him $25 a month. And he'd come every day and stay, and he shaved Dad and everything, but and then he got to where he wouldn't take his medicine. He just would not take it. So Marie come down and stayed 2 nights with me, and then she went home. And then he got so bad, that was before he took the bed now. He was going to run off. He was going home. And he just gathered up some things off the floor and put them in a paper sack. And Richard was here, and he went over to the restaurant or somewhere. But he was going to come back a little while. He had come and stayed all night with me because Dad wasn't very good. And when he come, I thought, oh, I just hope Richard would soon make it back, you know. I just backed up against the kitchen drawer. Dad's cane was hanging on the back of it. I just left it there, and I just held the door. He got so mad at me, he threw that sack, and oh, he just called me everything. When Richard come, oh, I was so glad to see him. Opened the door. Well, he said, what's going on? Well, Richard said, or Dad said, I'm a-going home. Richard said, well, sit down here at the table, Granddad, and let's talk things over, he said. And so sat down there, and I just slipped into the telephone, and I called, and Charles answered, and I said, Charles, I've got to have some help. And I don't know, it seemed like it was him and Joyce come. I'm not sure whether Joyce coming out. Marie was working, I think. And so Richard, he told him different things that was in the Bible, and Richard didn't know the Bible. He didn't know one thing that was in it. But he talked to Dad and told him things like that, and things was happening, you know. And that boy didn't know nothing. He had never seen the Bible, I don't think, but he got by with it. And they visited, and so here come Charles. And Charles come in, sat down, you know, as if nothing had happened. and Dad won't know about our money. Uncle Charles said, I don't know anything about your money. Well, he said, seems like I spend everything we've got, and he just wants to know about his money. And we thought we weren't going to be able to do anything with it, but he. And then Joyce come. I don't know whether it was that night or the next night. Dr. Bunnell set her down here, and she gave him a shot. And it kind of cooled him down. And then he really got bad after that. When he really took bad, he just... I thought I was going to have to go get some help. We went and got apples that day. And when we come back, the neighbor, it was on Sunday morning, the neighbor was going to carry I got half a bushel. He's going to carry it in for me. Dad said, just put them in the car. He said, we're going home. And I told him, I said, well, just set them down or do whatever you want to do, I said. And come in, and I got cooked us a bite of dinner, and Dad was sitting right here in this chair, and I was washing my dishes after we'd had our dinner. And he never sat here, never. He always sat over yonder. He watched every move I made. Every time I'd look, I could see, he was just watching me. Oh, I got so nervous, I just thought I was going to die. So after I got the dishes done, I thought, well, what will I do? So Jerry Bob had brought me some things from the factory that he thought I could make comfort tops out of. So I just picked up that box and set it up on the bed, and he could see right in there on the bed. And I was just looking through him. He thought I was packing up to leave. Oh, he really got bad. So, come time to go to bed, he went to bed. And in a little while, he got up. He said, now get up, dress. He says, the cops is a-coming. He said, they're going to take me. I said, well, I don't think so. He said, don't you see them lights? I said, no, I don't. Well, he said, you ought to. He said, they're coming to get us. He said, you just welcome go along. I said, well, I need to go on. And he worked with his pants and his shirt. He just couldn't get them on. And he just sat up on the side of the bed. And he went on and on. He said, now, don't you go out of this house. He said, if you do, it'll be good for you. I had a Davenport over there, so I sat on the Davenport and watched him. And I didn't go back to bed. And he said, when he told me not to go out, so after bed, I just didn't have a light on in here. I just slipped out, and I went over here to the neighbors. But they had their lock turned off, their bell turned off. So kind of, I could have knocked a little, but kind of failed me. I just come back home, did go. So the next morning, and when after bed, he said, he was just getting wore out. He said, have you got any pills in that little black bag? I said, I sure have. So I had, some kind of sleeping pill. I forget what it was. I sure went and got him and gave it to him. And he never got in the bed. He just laid back on the bed and went sound asleep. Next morning, he got up, dressed as usual, shaved. And I thought, now we're going to make it. After Biddy come, he said, you call Harlan Yates, that's our banker. And he said, get my suit. He had on, he always wore a blue shirt, dark blue shirt and blue pants, you know. I said, well, you want me your suit? He said, we're going to the bank. He said, they've got my money all froze over there. He said, now you call him and tell him we're coming out. I said, so I went to the phone and I come back. I said, Dad, the banker's not there today. This is a holiday, and he's gone. I said, we can't go. Well, he was kind of mad about it. So I just called the neighbor, and he come over, and he told them that I took all of his money. He didn't have a penny. And he just went on, you know, and they wanted him to go lay down a while, you know. They didn't know what was wrong when they come in. They said, well, what's wrong? And I just wanted him to be still, you know, and just visit with him. And I said, well, Dad, you've got money. You've got your billfold. You know, he said, Mom just spends every penny we got. And he just took out that billfold, threw it over to me, you know, and I opened it up. He did have a $20 bill in. I said, see, you've got money. And so after a bit, the neighbor decided they'd go home. And they told him what they come for was to talk about Thanksgiving dinner. They was going to have a dinner and have me and him over. So, and he wanted to go. He told him, he said, it's time you're supposed to go home. So they went home. And from that time on, Dad was just in bed. And go in there and sit down by the bed, talk to him. Pauline was his favorite. She'd go to the field with him. She just worked with him. She shucked corn. She plowed and corn, you know, and beans and things. She'd just go to the field with him. And she was just his little helper. And she'd come down. She just sat down. I had a stool in her. She'd sit down there by him and just visit with him, you know. And first thing we know, he'd go to sleep. So, but I made it. Didn't have to take him back to the hospital. Didn't have to take him back to the nursing home. And I didn't get sick over it either. So I made it.
How long was he home?
He was just, we took him on the, I didn't know just when we took him, was it? Seemed like it was July. And he just stayed a month. And then we brought, no, it wasn't July because he died in July. We took him in the spring anyway, and then he passed away on the 30th of July. That book would tell you what time it was when Dad died. Just shut it off a little bit, honey. And he died then in July. Died.
Well, it must have been a hard time for you.
Oh, it was.
For him not realize half the time who you were.
He would eat. He would take his medicine. Marie'd come down and she'd take her. And she told me, she said, she thought he was going to get better, you know. She'd come down and she brought her gown and she stayed one night and she'd go home the next morning. And she was just almost ready to go. She just said, well, I'm going to stay, she said. So they called Joyce and she'd come down. So Joyce just sat down at the phone and called Louise. And at work. And they got in that evening, a little before dark. And they called Doris. And Greg, she was in New Mexico then. And Greg, her son, had been there on vacation. They was even in the car, ready to start. And when they got the call, she had them to wait. So then she just packed her suitcase and come right with them. And they got in here in the middle of the night. And but Dad died just a little while before she got here. A little while before she got here. Oh, she babied Dad. She loved him. He didn't like for me to mow the yard. He just really hated me to do it, you know. And he'd say, oh, don't mow. I'd say, well, and lots of times I waited till he went to sleep, and then I'd go out and mow the yard, you know. And so she was here and stayed a while with me. And she come out and she said, Mom, she said, Dad wants to know where his money is. In the nursing home, we left him some change. He had some quarters and some dimes, but he lost them. Somebody got them. He said somebody stole them, he said. But when Ethel and Charles went up to bring his things home, why, I said, now see who can find Dad's little change pocketbook. I think it was Ethel found it. It was in the pillowcase or somewhere, you know, and had his money in it. And law, that was just worth it all to him. That was just a fortune. So she came out and I said, well, I said, it's in there in that drawer. I said, so And she'd put his feet in the water and bathe him, and then she'd put some kind of skin cream on his legs, you know. He had such much dry skin, you know. So, oh, she just babied him. So, but anyway, I went through it. So, and I'm still here.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Okay, Grandma. I'm at that point in my life where I'm raising kids. What have you got to tell me about raising them? What should I do?
Let me think a little bit.
Okay.
One thing that you should be good to them, but they should be taught the right way, and you shouldn't send them off to church or anything by themselves. You should go with them, and you could help pick their playmates, and you could learn them how to do things at home. They should have certain jobs to do, and you should teach them the right way. And you have to do that. You have to be that yourself too. I mean, you have to be the. Can't just teach them if you don't follow the instructions too, you know. So, and I don't need, you just need to be kind of buddies. And you shouldn't just say if they do something wrong. I don't think a person should say, now, I'll tell your dad. I think you should try to straighten them out yourself, and then if they really need to be punished the other way, why, he could help out with it. But I don't think you should, every time they do something, you say, well, I'll tell your dad. You know, people do that. Mm-hmm. And I think you could talk to them and kind of help straighten it out yourself. Of course, they always say they're afraid of dad, but not mom. So, so I don't know. I really don't know.
I think you gave some good advice.
But I do know that you should try to teach them how they should live and the kind of company they should have and things like that. And the very best you know how. And go with them, be buddies to them, you know. I think a lot of them, and I think they'll learn to like you that way too.
That's good advice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about the kids? What would you want to tell the kids? How should the kids treat the parents?
Well, I hate for them to be jealous of one another. You know, that happens. Yeah. I hate for them to say, well, you're better than so-and-so, you know. And you don't get me things like you do the others and things like that. I don't like kids to feel that way. Maybe you do pick one, I don't know. Of course, I always felt bad for Catherine because she wasn't well, you know. But as far as doing things that I didn't do for Marie, I don't think I ever done that. I don't think I was that way. And I like to see kids that'll mind. And when I'd take them someplace, I didn't want them to ask for something to eat the first thing they got there. And lots of times they would tell things that I didn't want them to. I'd rather they keep still, you know. So, but Grandpa and Grandma Bunnell always made the biggest difference in Marie and Catherine. I guess it was because Catherine wasn't well. They just get Catherine things. Marie, she could wear the old hand-him-down, you know, and they'd get Catherine maybe new things, you know. And Marie could wear the hand-me-downs, you know. things like that. And of course she knew that. That hurt Marie's feelings awful bad. Because they, and I don't know, I think it's kind of the dad's place to kind of teach the boys more so than the mother's place. I think they should tell them how they should do, and they should have, I think every kid should learn to work.
Oh boy, I agree with that.
I do. I think that keeps them out of meanness, and I think they should learn to work. So, but, we never had much trouble with our kids, as far as I can remember. When Dale run off one time, we went to Mount Vernon, and well, he's gone. He packed up and left. And he's just a little snob because he was let's see, I don't know whether he was 16 or 17 when him and Alpha got married. They went to Kentucky and got their license because, you know, we'd had to sign for him. And I know maybe we wouldn't. I don't know if we would or not. But he just left home. And I don't remember what that was all about. I don't know. I don't know whether he got hurt or anything. He used to go horseback over to Powell's to see Alpha, you know, and I don't know. But then I remember about him leaving home. That's the only one we had that run off. Was him. He just backed up and ran off. But we found out where he was at, and Dwight and Alpha, and I guess maybe Catherine and Marie, they went where he was at, and he just come home with them. Guess he'd had all of it he wanted. I don't know. And
now Dale's the one that is dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
When did he die from?
he was in a car wreck.
Oh.
And he was separated. He lived by himself. And that happened. He was. It was the 5th of July on Sunday morning when we got the word. They called Dwight from Rockford Hospital. Dwight lived in Genoa. They've always lived in Genoa ever since they've been gone. And Dale and Dwight were awful buddies. And they called from when they let him, the others that was in the wreck, they kind of laid it all on to Dale. Now, it might have been, I don't know who was driving or anything about it. There was a bunch of, I don't know, there was girls, and I don't know if it was boys or not. They was all in this car, you know. And I don't know who was driving. I don't think the car belonged to Dale. I don't remember for sure. And when they had this car wreck, then they held him at the police station or somewhere. But anyway, when Dale got loose, he just come home. But I think he almost had a punctured lung or something. He hadn't been home no time till he had to go back to the hospital. And he just went to the hospital, never told nobody, never called Dwight or anything. So then I guess he told them who to call. So they called Dwight in the middle of the night. And Dwight and Louise just got up and went to Rockford. And when they got there, Dale knew them. But she said they had all kinds of things on him, and some way or another there was a kind of a bell or something went off. And that was just it. Dale was gone. I think he had a punctured lung, and I don't know what. But Dwight kind of felt like he maybe wasn't took care of right, you know. Maybe they didn't, because they couldn't get a hold of nobody, you know. They didn't know who to call, you know. He didn't have no wife, and so.
what's your happiest memory? The absolute happiest thing you can remember.
I should have been happy on our wedding and our 50th wedding anniversary. The kids had to do for us just at our place, you know. That's when we moved into town.
Oh.
Was when we had our 50th wedding anniversary, and this house was, we had to have it fixed over. We just had a little hung-on porch, and we had to have that new kitchen put on, you know. And we moved January the 6th. I think it was 62. I don't know whether it'd been right. I don't know whether it'd been right or not. And they, for our 50th anniversary, they had ice cream and cake, and they were all to come just in the afternoon for ice cream and cake. But I don't know whether Catherine's girls saw misunderstood or what, but they come and got there before noon. Catherine and Esther were living up at Braidwood. That's the first time they'd been gone. And they come down here to Sisney to Esther's folks, and they were here. So Dale come home, and him and, I don't know, his second or third wife, whatever it was married, you know, and the first time I'd seen her. So they come in that morning. Well, I knew they were coming, and Doris and Bob was at our house. And Doris said, Mom, let's don't fix dinner. Let's go out and eat. Dad didn't want to. He always wanted me to cook dinner. He didn't ever want to go out to eat. He didn't like to. So I said, well, so I fried chicken, and I had ham and all this and that, you know. And Dale got there, I don't know just what time. They come to Florida at the motel, stayed all night, and then come down next morning. And, you know, we was getting dinner and about ready, and just 1, 2, 3, 4 Catherine's kids come, you know. And I hadn't counted on them. So I really got upset. And we sat down at the table, you know. And Charles said he'd never forget. He said, Granddad said, he'd pass the mashed potatoes around. Well, just go ahead and take some. Mom's got plenty more back on the stove. And I didn't have, of course. And the time we got the meal over with, well, then Judy, that was Dale's wife, she waited to eat with me. And she said she felt so bad for me because the first time she'd been there, and she knew it was embarrassing because the ham was about gone, and I think everything else was gone. And then I had things in the deep freeze. You know, we bought cream pies at that time, and all I'd had done was take them out of the freezer, and I'd had them. But it kind of spoiled my day, see?
Yeah.
So that wasn't a happy time.
No, that was happy.
Yeah. But I was always just happy when my kids come home. Like Mother's Day, or even if they just get together and come home and we'd all be together. And that's what I tell them yet to this day. For my birthday, they'll always say, what do you want, Mom? I said, I just love to be with all you kids. But see, I've got one that can't come, that's Doris, and so, and, but the rest of them, we were all together for my birthday. Went down to Dwight's, and Louise made a freezer of ice cream, and Pauline, I believe Pauline baked the cake, I'm not sure. Yeah, I know she did. Yeah, she baked the cake. It was all together and had pictures and everything, you know, so. But of course, always one I'm missing, that's Doris. You know, can't be helped. No. Now, then, what else you want to know?
Well, Grandma, that's about it. I've covered just about everything.
I just can't turn it off. I just really enjoyed the day. So, I just really enjoyed it. So,
I enjoyed it too, Grandma.
yeah.
I'm glad you do this for me.
Well, I wish I could could have had it all planned out, but I couldn't. I didn't know hardly what you wanted to know, you know.
Well, it's hard to know how to talk about
Yeah.
your life. It's not an area that we do
Yeah.
a lot.
Now I could have, you know, in my life, my mother made lye soap, and they made hominy, and we churned her butter in the churn, and wasn't nothing up to date at all, and we cooked on an old wood stove and everything like that, you know, and washed out under the shade tree had a stool chair and put our wash tub on it, and a washboard and a cake of soap, and built us a fire out there, and we boiled all of our white clothes. We boiled them. My, wouldn't that be awful today?
It would.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't
And,
be able to hack that kind of life.
and I always baked my own bread. Baked it in a great big bread. When we got married, I could bake bread. Justin said I'd never leave it in long to get done. He said I just put it in, build up the fire, you know. We just had oven like that, you know. You couldn't regulate your heat, you know.
Ooh, yeah.
And he said after a bit I'd said it done, pull her out, and he said wouldn't be done. And then he didn't think I was a very good cook. I hadn't learned that before, so now it's a good idea to learn your children all how to do things. Let them do things. Let them mess with your pie dough and your cookies, and let them. Now I just wouldn't do that. I think I could do it, bake it. I could fix up my pies and things and clean up my mess, and here they'd still be mussing, you know. So, but that's not the way to do.
No, it's not, but that's the easy way to do it.
Yeah, just hate to have everything such a mess, you know. And let's see. Now Alice come early this morning, and I had a meatloaf and had some other things in the freezer, and we had Jell-O, and we just sat down and visited, and I had plenty to eat, and she said she did too, so, and I really, really enjoyed the day. Yeah, I sure have, so, and I don't think we'll be able to do this again, but you never know. I hope I keep my health and everything, and I don't want to go with any of my children. I love every one of them, but I don't want to be put in the nursing home. And I'm awful about going to the doctor. I just will not go. And I don't know. I just want to stay in my own home, and I want to keep it livable as I can. And I still mow my yard. Don't have no car. I sold my car about a month ago. Oh, it's been longer than that. I sold it early. And then they made my carport, you know. But I'm not regret that I don't have any car. And when I want to go anywhere, I call Dwight and Louise. That's what they told me to do. Kind of hate to sometimes, though.
No, that's what they told you to do.
That's what they told me to do, yep. Mm-hmm. And Catherine's not too good. She's got colon trouble, but and as far as I know, Charles is fine. Let's see if I got any more sick ones. Don't believe I have. Mm-hmm. As far as I know, my grandkids is all happy. And I'm happy.
Sounds like you've had a pretty good life.
Oh, yes.
You've had your hard times, but you've
Yeah.
stayed close to God.
You know what it is, what you've got, you know how you've made it. But I didn't know what it was when I got married, to keep house and cook and things. I had it all to learn. That's all there is to it. I always swept, and We always had rag carpets, you know. That's what and we had straw on the floor, and we'd put tack that rag carpet down on the floor. We'd have stretchers. We'd stretch the carpet, and when you sweep, the dust would just fall. And I'd think, well, I'm really getting this cleaned up if the dust fogs, you know, like that. Well, now if I'd have dust like that, it'd be awful. So, but I never done much with the cooking. My mother always, she could go in the kitchen and start dinner and have a fire in her cook stove, and she'd just stir up what she called a 1-egg cake, and we'd have that warm for dinner. Sometimes she made what she called a dip or something, and we put on. We had apple dumplings once in a while, and she'd make something to put on them. And she loved to cook guineas. We raised guineas and rabbits. I don't like rabbit, but she could fix rabbit. We'd even had rabbit and gravy for breakfast. She'd fix them in the oven and make biscuits, rabbits, and then it was wonderful. But now I wouldn't eat rabbit at all. No way, shape, or form. They make me think of a cat.
It's changed over the years.
And a squirrel makes me think of a rat. So no, I've changed. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now you go to the store and you buy your hamburger, and it's just different. You don't have to see the processing. You don't have to see all that. The times just change.
Yeah.
And along with those changes, the
And we
person changes.
always had threshers. We'd always had 8 or 10 men, you know, that worked at the threshing machine, threshing the hay and getting the seed out and everything, you know. And she'd have lots of times that morning we was going to have threshers for dinner. We'd go out and catch chickens and kill them and dress them and put them in cold water a little while, and we'd have fried chicken for dinner, you know.
That's where that thing, eat like a thresher, comes in at.
Huh?
My mom always said, you're eating like a thresher.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what that means.
Yeah.
I never knew what that meant.
And they stay for supper. And I never could see that. Well, I thought they need to go home and get their work done and clean up and eat their meal at home. I thought that was so awful, you know. But we always had a big gang to cook for. And then the women and their children would come along. And after the threshers was ate, we had a whole table full of women and kids.
Oh, you mean their wives and their kids?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Boy, go to the boss's house for dinner.
Yeah. You know, we didn't have cars, you know. And we'd get in the buggy or the wagon and go someplace for dinner. Just load the kids in and here we go, you know. Huh. And that's the way we visited, you know. And so I don't know. But anyway, now we're living in the modern times.
Yeah, people aren't as open. I mean, people close themselves off more. They don't really want to.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I get kind of mad at myself because I don't go even to my neighbors, you know. But we don't. We visit. She'll call me on the telephone. She lives right here. She'll call me on the telephone, tell me what's going on. And her husband works at Mount Vernon or Benton and at the coal mines. And once in a while he stays home, has a day off, and she'll call me and she'll say, "Don't think he's sick now," because she said he just took the day off. He's going to do so and so at home, you know. And she'd come over here. She'd drop in and visit me, but I just let her do the running, you know. I don't go there. She comes over here, so I've got all the good neighbors and everything like that. And I go to church whenever you shut this off, I'm going to ask you something.
Whatever you can think of that God has done in your life. Just take this last few minutes and...
Only thing that I could think of would be that I've had good health. I've had a nice married life. Had a good husband. And I've been spared with 6 nice children, and they have really been good to me, and they are yet to this day. They're really good to me. Baby me too much. So, and I'm able to go to church. And so on and so forth. That's about all I know.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You said before you went to church as a child, so you were raised in a church. Well, what kind of church was it?
My folks went to the Missionary Baptist Church first, and then they went to the Free Will Baptist. Last of all, my mother belonged to Free Will Baptist Church. I don't believe my dad belonged to the church. I don't believe he did, but my mother did. But they went to the Missionary Baptist first, and then they went to Johnsonville to the Little Baptist Church. And that church is not there no more. There's just a Methodist church in that town now. It's just a little place, So.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you and Justin got married, you went to church?
At the Free Will Baptist Church, where he belonged. He always belonged there. He always went. His dad and mother he always went to church. Him and his sister went in the buggy that he had, and then Dad and Mother they went in their rig, They went separate, on 2 rigs. Mm-hmm. So.
Okay, I got another question for you. Let me figure out how to word it here. You said you had a happy marriage. What do you think was the biggest key to a successful happy marriage?
I can think of is work together. Is work together. And do the very best you know how. And teach your children in the right way.
Okay, and by work together you mean how?
Yeah, I mean, just do together. Do your work together. Do things together. Be together. It takes both of you to make a